You're listening to Achtung, Millwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Birmingham. Accept no substitute.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to an international break, Achtung, Millwall. Joining me on this intermediate show, whilst we savour the long look forward to breaking proceedings. Joining me is Mr. Michael Avery. Welcome back to the show, Michael. Been a little while, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much, and welcome. Nice welcome back there, and thank you, dear listeners, for having me back in your ears for the next hour-ish or so.
Always good to have you back. And also joining us on the show, we were just listening to his predictions, his mystic, Harry Warren, who's been on the old Predictor H.
Yeah, I was on the Predictor. I've also donned my 2001-2002 shirt in honour of our half chance at the playoffs. So
it's the 24/7.
Yeah, 24/7 Strike Force, obviously. Another fantastic Millwall kit manufacturer from the past.
one of Theo's specials. No, we were just talking. Harry's done it's an online predictor, listeners, that's doing the rounds. You may well have seen it by the time you get to listen to this show. But H, we need to know your call for the final outcome, the final 8 games of the season. Run it through from the top. Start with the champions. Who are you having as your champs?
I've only done the top 10 because I think they're the only places that
they're the only interest in it.
Yeah, that's it. Right. So I've got Fulham going up with 104 points. I think that would be a championship record.
Yeah, I think it will be. Yeah,
I don't think that's them dropping a point. Then I've got Bournemouth in second.
Okay.
Who I have got losing to us. I have got losing to us on the second last day of the season. No. The reason we're beating them is that they're up by them. That is the reason that we're beating.
So the foot's off the pedal.
So the foot's off the pedal. They're on the bench. They're done. Right. That lead had been promoted the week before in my predictor. Right. This was the logic. Right. Yep. Huddersfield finishing third on 82 points.
Yep.
Forest finishing fourth on 78.
Yep.
Because I think Forest not playing extra time the other night didn't really help us. I could have done with.
We need a drum roll building for the 5th and the 6th spot now, don't we? I'll see if I can find a drum roll when I do the final edit. So who's you got number 5? Drum roll.
Number 5, Millwall. 77 points.
End of drum roll. Quickest drum roll ever.
Right. Yeah. Blackburn 6th with 73 points. Sheffield United 71, Luton 69, West Brom 67, and Middlesbrough
the rest nowhere
with 66.
What results you got? You're first to finish 5th, Age. What results have you got? We're winning.
We are winning. We're winning. We're basically the formal spin is that we beat Luton, and Luton have a crisis of confidence. QPR, I think, are done looking at their results. I mean, you can't capitulate at home against Peterborough. I've been looking online. Right. There are calls for Mark Warburton to be sacked at QPR. They're in the playoffs, by the way, ladies and gentlemen.
Unrest at Loftus Road.
No, they are. They generally are. So they must be playing awful. So there's not really many teams in good form. And I'm basing on a sort of madcap 8 games, nothing to lose, Millwall, the best of us type. If we win at Luton, it suddenly goes biblical and we don't lose, because that just would be ridiculous, wouldn't it, for us to... I've got us winning at Birmingham. I have no idea why I've decided this, but you know, there's things.
How many points did you say Luton would finish with?
69.
So you're predicting them to only get 6 points for the rest of the season.
A collapse of confidence because we've turned them over.
If you look at their fixtures, they've got I think they've got 4 shootouts against teams in the run, and I just don't see.
Yeah, Peterborough.
They have might have Peterborough. I've given them Peterborough. They won at Peterborough. There they are. They're at home against Peterborough. I've given them that one. They're. I like the optimism, Harry. I think they've got Forest. Luton's running is like us. Forest. I think
Huddersfield, Cardiff, Blackpool, Fulham, and Reading. I'm looking now.
I think Reading are gonna get out of it. I just have got a funny feeling Reading are gonna start winning games. They're not. They're shit. but there is a lot of shit in the Championship. This is what we've learned this season.
I do agree with that.
Also, I think it was a fair point the other night on Sky when they turned around and said you've got to go on another, like teams have got to go on another run. I don't think that's necessarily true. I just don't think you can get in by drawing, because as long as you don't lose, if you're one of the teams in front of us, if you don't lose to us and you win your other games, then you're fine. You know what I mean? You don't have to win every game to go up. You can play the percentages. So
it's strange. Your optimistic take on the end of the season, Harry, linked in very nicely with an original lead. I was trying to think, how do we start the conversation? And there's always like anything is your lead in that hooks your listeners. So originally I was going to try, Michael, and I happened to listen to Mr. Mister, a 1980s classic about taking our broken wings and flying away. And I thought that relates in a kind of a way to the Millwall squad at the moment, which is battered and bruised and injured. But we do need to find some form. And actually, listening to Harry, I think maybe we did indeed take our broken wings in that little run and fly away. I mean, Michael, obviously the news yesterday was another body blow that Mason Bennett is now out for the season, which when he hobbled off on Saturday, I thought he don't look good, and he does seem to be a very good player for us, but an injury-prone player too. And it's been a litany of injury all season, one way and the other. I can't quite get my head around it.
Yeah, but I believe it was it the Middlesbrough game as well when he limped off early as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, he did. But Gary Rowett today, I was just reading saying he's out for realistically out for the season now, because obviously there's only 4 more weeks of it to go, so that's the end of Mason.
Is that including playoffs as well? In case we got to the playoffs, would he be back for them, or is it
he's going to be, and he's got to be. Yeah.
It doesn't go into that kind of detail. The exact quote here is that he's expected to be out for the season realistically.
I like the word realistically. Realistically,
I haven't got the exact words here.
That's Mourinho type speak. Oh, we have no defenders realistically, and then plays one. That's fine.
Yeah, no, it's worse than effect. I haven't got the exact quote, listeners, but tune into this show for exactitudes. So yeah, another interesting article, boys. I just wanted to get your take on it. I am no turf management expert, but Gary Rowett is contrasting the relayed pitch at the Den, which is a Deso pitch, which is like a combination of grass and fibre, with the situation at Calmont Road, which I'm going to guess is just traditional turf laid on mud, on dirt, basically. And the difference between the firmness of the Den and the softer pitch at Calmont Road being a cause for, or one reason behind, the torrent of injuries we've had all season. I don't know. Does that sound plausible to you, chaps? You both play and ref, but I don't know.
I think the thing is that in the nicest possible way to Gary Rowett, and I'll hold my hands up to him. We said it the other week, Nick, when I was last on, that for the amount of players he's had injured since he's taken over, to be in with a sniff now and sort of do consistently well over a number of years. I know performance-wise we may not agree it's what you want to watch, but he's done pretty well. Yeah. Surely in the nicest possible way this would have got sussed out before. If we was having injuries in other players or other times. Didn't Neil Harris have a bit of an injury issue a few years ago as well? So it would have got picked up before now that that we have all these injuries. And I'm in the nicest possible way. If it was the case that a sort of grass and fibre combination of ground contrasted with grass is the issue and will lead to more injuries, why did you get it done in the first place? Or playing devil's advocate.
That question. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, or playing devil's advocate, is that the reason why we're now moving training facilities?
Well, I think the pitch was relayed at the start of the season. Just to I'll come to you in a sec, H. And the exact quote he's saying that it kind of contradicts himself. There's no direct correlation, says Gary Rowett, but a lot of teams have had injury problems where they've gone from a soft first team pitch, i.e. the training pitch at Calmont, to a Deso pitch, which is a lot firmer, which is the pitch, Harry, that was relayed at the start of the season. The club also, it says here, did some work underneath the grass, we'll call it. It's a combo surface to allow for water drainage. I don't know. I mean, we if we've laid it, why are we laying a pitch that potentially causes more problems? We have certainly seen a lot this season, haven't we? At the Den.
I think Calmont Road is, as much as we like the traditions or whatever, Calmont Road's being moved away from anyway. So anything that Badmouth's Calmont Road's going to say
is a good thing. That's true. Yeah.
Like if you're from a club's point of view, allow my cynicism, but if you're spending £2 million on a new training facility out in Kent that you're going to rent out like a lot of the lower league sides do to generate revenue, it probably makes sense to slag off traditional grass. I think the problem we've got is that we've had a lot of our injuries have all been muscular. We've not had a broken leg. We've not had we've had maybe Leonard with ligaments, but most of them tend to be strains, pulls, tears. These are all wear and tear injuries. A lot of sides, we're not just talking about Millwall, probably this season there has been an awful lot of injuries in football. I think it's a combination of 2 COVID seasons leading into this one. This season's on a truncated schedule anyway because they need to get done early to get the World Cup in at the end of the year.
Yeah,
it's like the perfect storm, and we're a small squad anyway, so it affects us more than maybe sides with more adequate resources. What I would say to that is the person that manages minutes is Gary Rowett, the person that got rid of players, whether that's right, wrong, or otherwise, was Gary Rowett, and the person that we decided to bring in, or 2 of the people that we decided to bring in, were injured straight away in their first games. So, we instead of losing 2 players in Burke and Freeman, we lost 5 players because we let 3 players go, and then the 2 that we brought in to replace them, we lost straight away. So, were they fit? Did we do anything? There are, you can ask questions to this. I'm sure they did, or at least I hope they did. But what's the right word? We're the masters of our own downfall there. We can't control injuries. Injuries happen. He's done the best with the situation that they've had. Whether or not that's right, wrong, or otherwise, I think to still be in the sniff despite the injuries, and I think that's what everyone keeps saying is despite the injuries. It is good. The point is I think in that article that you touched on about Bennett, he's saying about how many players are coming back. We don't really want to rush Ojo into first team football or Bradshaw really, but I suppose when you've got the lure of 100 million quid, possibly 8 games away.
Yeah, I think they will be pitched into it, Harry. I think the
thing is as well with those injuries. You touched on it slightly, but I think you do make a good point, Harry, in the sense that a lot of the players who, or I won't say all of them because it will contradict it, but a good number, a lot of the players are those who haven't had minutes elsewhere or have been a little bit in and out of the squad all season. I mean, with Bradshaw, yes, he got injured after having a bit of a run in the side, but it wasn't as if that was his 20th game in a row. He was still sort of getting his way back into the team. As you say, with Freeman and Burke, these were players who, they were like cars who were sitting out in the driveway for 3-4 months. You've got to let the engine run for a little while before you start driving it again, or something will break. As we know about Mason Bennett, he's always susceptible to injury, and I don't think it's the ground. I think it is sort of training. It could be training regimes, and like you say, trying to get either players who haven't been playing fit and playing when they're not ready, or rushing people back from injury. Because even Afobe hasn't featured massively over the last few years, but he's played an awful lot of games for us this season and been a little bit in and out as well, hasn't he?
I think it's the condensed. I mean, the Championship is always a long season, isn't it? 46 games plus cup competitions, depending on how you progress in those. But even just take the league season of 46 games. Normally it's spread over a longer stretch. I mean, this season has been condensed because of last season and the COVID. There was a slightly late start to this season, and then we're having to finish it probably in a slightly tighter schedule because of the need to accommodate a World Cup in Qatar. More of that later, listeners. So I do think that sounds to me like the likelier course. The pitch is an odd one. It's just come out of a clear blue sky slightly. It's on News at Den. I was just reading it before we came on this call today, and I thought it just has a bit of a leaves on the line type of quality to it, doesn't it? we've got a pitch that's supposed to be brilliant. Deso pitch apparently is where we wanted it to be, so we can play football. And we have seen that because we're just going back a couple of games to the Huddersfield performance. For me, performance of the season, where the team were playing absolutely at their maximum, and hats off to that. So to refer to the Calmont Road, which is probably just like a playing field type of setup, really there. I can't imagine they've done an awful lot of pitch work there. Just seems an odd contrast to make. I mean, he's talking about the play, the run-in, the final 8 games here, and how he doesn't anticipate, he being Gary Rowett, doesn't anticipate fatigue, and as he puts it, bodies coming back being a problem. I mean, my worry is, Harry, that the Huddersfield game was probably a great example of how, when we play to the max, that team that we've got, that bare bones squad played to the maximum, is very, very good, can compete with anyone in the division. But you've got to play at that level, and that's a really hard ask over the final 8 of a long season already. I know that's the nature of the business that they're in, but I just think it's maybe too much of an ask now. How do you see it, mate?
I don't think that. I think the Huddersfield performance was brilliant. That's us at our attacking best. That's the system. That's what you were promised when Gary Rowett come in, to move to this.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's good that we see it. We don't see it often enough yet for my liking, but when it's like that, by all means, I'm fully aboard the Rowett train. That you get the yin and the yang of that. The Stoke performance, we've written the Stoke performance off as we're knackered, and I think that's fair enough.
I think we did look tired.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. The difference is we can be knackered, and we can, because we've been very, very solid in terms of getting points. When we've in that run of 8 games, we maximised what we had available on those days. And Blackburn, we're fucked. We can't go again. Let's not lose. Right, behind the ball, whatever, XG of 0. No shots on goal, whatever. And I think realistically, this little time, this little international break has probably come at a really good time for Millwall. If we had beaten Stoke, it might have felt like this was a bad international break because you'd have lost momentum. We've kind of lost momentum anyway because we lost the game. We can take a week off or whatever it ends up being. What is it? Just over a week of time off. No Saturday, Tuesday for the first time in God knows how long. And you can get players time with their family, players to relax, players maybe to refocus themselves. The coaching team and that can build plans for, Luton and subsequent games. You've got to take that as a positive. Yes, the other teams have that advantage as well, but they're not. They've all got some form of expectation. I don't think we've really got expectation. I think Millwall fans, realistically, if I'm being honest, even myself, really didn't expect us to be here.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Now we are here, and probably some of the squad didn't think that 8 games ago. Now there are members of our squad. You've mentioned it. It's been a running theme. You always mention this phrase "big time" whenever we get to the thing. Now we do have, I think, big time players. Now I think we've grown. I think Jake Cooper, Sean Hutchinson, Ballard, Saville. Saville and Ballard, for instance, are international quality players. I know it's Northern Ireland, but they are. They've been to European Championships and so on, and World Cup qualifiers in big stadiums and whatever. That class will rise through in these 8 games, and it has done over the last 8 games. Saville's started. Millwall's form has turned round in the turnaround of how good George Saville has been over those 8 games. Not started off like a rocket ship, but gradually built on and on. And people he's an unsung hero in that little bit of midfield. Billy Mitchell's playing really well. All these players are starting to play to the top of their ability. Yes, I understand the Huddersfield performance was probably all of them playing well at the same time, probably for the first time this season, other than maybe the QPR game in the system, to play at that level. But the players that we've got coming back, like I always think that Ryan Leonard is ridiculously good for us at times when he's sort of played 3 or 4 games together.
And he's one of the players that Rowett mentions as returning.
Bradshaw was in his pomp, especially from a Millwall point of view, but I think he was up there with his Barnsley. Was it Barnsley before? I think he was up there with his goal scoring record there when he got injured. So even if only those 2 out of those players come back at the form that they were, Ojo's now going to obviously get a chance. So automatically, just saying those 3 players to add to that bench that gives us a chance. That means that we don't have to play Lovelace on a Tuesday night when we have to ask his school for permission. Can he come? You know, that's a simple, and that's a fact. You have to. That's
no,
the
he's young.
rules, right?
He's young. That's
So,
right. Yeah.
so you take those 3 players; those are 3 professionals, you know, that are going to come back into the squad that are decent Millwall players. Are probably 3 of Ojo. I'm still not sure, and he has fits and starts. He's a typical winger, but the other 2 were members of the first team playing all the time when we're going. Clifton Bell coming back, well, Passat maybe in terms of games when we're not going to have the ball, but he's got to do well to get back into that midfield. Those players help that bench because, you know, when you're looking at that bench, Conor Mahoney is not going to play. You know, you've got
it seems to be a gone
exactly
man now. You know,
Yeah,
He's the
Lovelace,
new Zampa.
he's the new Zampora Bellina. You've got the other young kid who I always forget his name, and I do apologise to him.
Tyrese Briscoe.
That
He was
one.
on the pitch the other night, wasn't he? Yeah.
So
Topoloj
as well. So those 3 probably will take them. Lovelace might travel because I can see Lovelace playing on a Saturday at the Den on the bench in terms of just go and run in the corner and press everything before 1-0 up, just rather than waste Bradshaw's legs of chasing something or someone gets injured, you need him there. But I can't see the other 2 being involved much more. With the players coming back. The thing is that just that reset, just those 4 players, that's a massive amount of ability to move around that squad. And not saying that other clubs won't have players back, not saying other clubs won't have recovered in this time, but the percentage of our squad that were actually out compared to what they will be when we return after the international break, probably getting like 25% of what would be classed as sort of our first 22, you know, first 17 back. And that's massive at this time of the season. You know, we've gone from scraping the barrel to probably, you know, we've got 2 loaves and fishes in there and we're trying to feed the 5,000. But it might happen, you know, weirder things have happened in football. I just think we are the gambler's chance. So if I was going to say, if we're an Ulster International, we're one of the 33 to 1 shots.
The long shots.
Right, well, it is a question for the listeners and a question for you 2. Would you be disappointed if we didn't make the playoffs this year?
Depends how we do it.
Would I be disappointed? I mean, I don't have the expectation that we will make it because I think maybe I capture a bit of what Harry just said. I think that I regard it as an unexpected bonus to even be able to talk about it, let alone get into it. I think, you know, obviously a huge amount rests on Luton. I was just looking as you were talking there, Michael. Luton Town, the away section has sold out. It's only a 10,000 seat stadium anyway, Kenilworth Road, so that's about 1,000 tickets for Millwall there. It's a huge game. A big amount rests on that performance and the result as much as the performance.
Sod the performance, just worry about the result.
Yeah, I think it's one of those games, boys, where a 1-0 win, if it comes off of Jake's backside, is all that we want there. If we can get a win there, then it's game on. I think then, you know, I was thinking about the Huddersfield game, Michael. I mean, you do your, you know, you're an athlete. Recovery physically, I think, is well, you know, you are. I mean, recovery physically from I don't know, you know, a marathon or a half marathon or whatever, or in the footballer's case, that massive performance against Huddersfield. I think you can recover physically. It seems to me, as an outsider to it, or that it's the mental recovery. I think that we were mentally dulled as much as physically dulled at Stoke, and I think it's very hard. Tell me different, boys, if you don't agree, but I think it's very hard to maintain that higher tempo, maximum performance mindset. You can do it for a build-up, and then there's a crescendo, and it falls away slightly. I think that's what we saw at Stoke. I mean, Michael, does that sound plausible to you, or is that?
Oh yeah, of course it does. I mean that even if you look, as silly as it sounds, if you look at like Olympic athletes, I mean, I know the sort of time period is longer, but they just sort of train for like 4 years. So even they've got a discipline of a certain amount of time, and these are people who are doing it day in, day out. Again, sort of with using the example of marathon running, you sort of have like a sort of 3-4 month period of I'm going to be focused all the time and everything like this. But you're right, Nick. You know, like and when you're playing football, you might have your sort of short-sighted goal of a few days and then the game, and then it lulls, short-sighted, then lulls. And sometimes, depending on your mentality as a person, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this, but if you're in the sort of lull period or the period between games or international breaks, you might start losing that little bit of motivation, or like you say, that 100% sort of sharpness to be at your very, very best. And all it takes at this sort of level, I mean, these are athletes who sort of do like ice baths and look for, you always hear the saying, don't you? Look for the 1%. All you need to be is at 98% and your opponent be at 100 and you've lost the game. So if you're consecutively playing at 100% like we did for those 8 games before, and unfortunately a few of the players pick up the lull, which does happen, then the Stoke result does happen. So yeah, I agree with that totally, Nick.
Yeah,
I think the effect, Harry, as well. I mean, the effect of the Den. It's a truth. Much harder to go to Stoke. I mean, there's a good travelling support. I think nearly 1,000 went up to Stoke, but it's just a different ball game to be playing in the Bet365 stadium than backed hard by a full or a fired up Den, if not full house, a fired up Den. Makes a difference.
Yeah, it does. I mean, look at it from this point of view. I think the talk before the Huddersfield game would be, if we win, we drag these in it, because they're not going to. If they win, if they come here and beat us, they're gone. That's third gone. So we're only playing fourth, fifth, sixth. It's silly because people will say, don't look at the table and all this, and football players will come out. They're human. They're looking at the fucking table.
Of course
they're not, right?
Yeah.
So they think, right, we've dragged another one in it. Right, that's another one that's got to beat other teams. You've done us a favour because it meant that Huddersfield really, and then losing again the same day we did against Stoke, unfortunately, but they lost again, meant that they're now not a dead cert really for second, and they're not, they've got to fight to stay in the playoffs. They can't go, well, we're done. So we dragged another one in. So the mentality of coming off that pitch at 9:30 at night on the Tuesday, let's just look at the week. Let's say the adrenaline's buzzing, they're taking the piss on the Sky interview, putting the fucking music on, Don't Go Breaking My Heart and all that, right? The adrenaline, let's say they all live an hour away from the ground, let's say they're home by 11, right? They can't sleep, so they ain't going to bed till 2, right? By the time they've tossed and turned in bed. Fucking, then what? It's Wednesday. Football players normally have Wednesday off. Don't know if they're in.
After a game, you would, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Then Thursday they come in, have one day of training before travelling to Stoke on Friday and playing Stoke on Saturday. That is the relentless nature of the Championship. And to switch on and switch off in that time and get your recovery right and get your hydration right and get your food right is hard.
It's a big ask.
And that is why in the Championship it is an achievement to go 8 games unbeaten. That is why it was such a good run.
And without conceding a goal for 5.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
right.
massive,
And that is why I feel the way I do doing that predictor, because I don't see there was nothing that changed there. There was what we do in this situation, which is, it happens very rarely, maybe once every 3 years, that Millwall something clicks, right? And we just knock into that, we almost rise to the level that we all want us to be all the time, but almost by Millwall in nature, even you, me and Michael aren't that all the time. We're not, the Den doesn't perform every game, and that's not a knock. We just don't, right? Sometimes you go to the Den and it's flat. There's no reason for it. You still support them the same, but it's not horrible. It just sort of exists and meanders into it takes them to ignite us. Other days they turn up and they walk out and we are fucking want to kill someone before they even get out on the pitch. That's probably the analogy for the squads almost. For some unknown reason, it just didn't happen. And I just think that there is no reason why they cannot do that again, because they've shown it against good sides that they can get clean sheets and they can score goals.
I agree. I think
it's a big ask, but there's no reason. There's no reason why they can't do it.
It is a big ask, chaps, and I make you right, Harry. This team has shown against Huddersfield, particularly, a good team, a form team. They came in as the form side of the Championship
of the country.
Yeah, and we made them look second best. So this is a good collection, no matter how reduced we are, no matter how thin the bench might look. And that's hopefully improving. So we've got players coming back now, experienced players. It won't be like bringing the kids off the bench. It'll be bringing maybe Ryan Leonard, or it might be bringing Kieftenbeld, players that have been around the track a few times. So I think it's all there to play for.
Achtung, Millwall.
I wanted to move along, if we may, boys. It's going to be. I mean, this is an international break week, so you're kind of thinking of what things you can talk about. And I think it's probably at the right time, because fairly soon, the MSC will be organising the Player of the Season vote, because it'll be over the next few weeks or so. I think normally it's presented before the last home game of the season. So I thought it might be a good time just to discuss between us who might be the candidates. Michael, who might your vote go for if or when we see the final ballot list, so to speak, Player of the Season?
Yeah, as you guys have known me for quite a while now, and I presume the listeners have got to sort of know my sort of style when it comes to these things. I don't always tend to go for like the out-and-out favourite all the time. I'm not sure whether it's to give someone else a chance or just because I sort of fancy, you know, rocking the apple cart a bit. But Jed's obviously the clear favourite to win the thing. But personally, I can't see why someone like Dan Ballard wouldn't get a shout. I know he's a lone player, but I think Dan Ballard, for coming in as a lone young defender, which is a difficult position to play when you're young, the only real football he sort of had is League One academy level, and to be up until he got injured, arguably the first name in the back three, back five all season, I think it's an incredible achievement. So I'd go for Dan Ballard personally.
Also, I like with Ballard the way, obviously we've just lost Sean Hutchinson, mainstay of the defence, a rock, Player of the Season a number of times over. And for Dan Ballard to come back from injury and take his place in the team, and for us then to go on and perform so well as we did in that run up until Stoke, I think is a massive achievement. Harry, who might your vote be placed against when you see the ballot paper?
It will be Murray Wallace.
Right.
I think Murray Wallace is the walking embodiment of the Championship, top end Championship side of Millwall Football Club. He's Andy Frampton, but in the Championship.
Yeah.
He started at one level
from Scotland.
He started at one level and has improved massively since he's got here. He's the fittest player by far. Does the most running. Whether or not that's because he's out of position or not, people are going to pick his game apart now and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. But he is fantastic. I think him and Malone, when they're on form, are a very good partnership down that left-hand side. I think Murray, is very unlucky to play in a era where Scotland have Robertson as a left back, because I think he'd be in there. I think if he played for a more fashionable team, he'd be in their squad. I think that's unfortunate for Murray Wallace. But that being, and also the last time that they put anyone connected with Millwall in the Scotland side, it was Jordan Archer. So I think that's tainted them forever. I just think Murray Wallace has just risen all the time. I think he's got the architectural, brilliant Millwall story of probably being told you're not the first team pick, and then proving everyone wrong. And I think that speaks a lot to most supporters at the club. For me, Murray Wallace.
Does. I was actually going to say Murray Wallace myself, so I'll choose someone else just for the purposes of conversation. But I love Murray Wallace, as is well known. Anyone listens into the show, and I make you right, Harry. I mean, it's the journey, because he came from Scunthorpe and he came in as this kind of League One journeyman defender that wasn't, was seen as an honest man, but not as any kind of wasn't going to lift you out of your seat. But I am loving, boys, these little flamboyant moments he's been showing in recent games. These little Cruyff turns, the
slide real pass for a phobie was back in, and he didn't shoot. I'm like, it's Murray Wallace.
Where's he come from?
He does play with a confidence.
Me picking up a colouring in book, and suddenly I've turned into Picasso overnight. It's amazing. So for that reason, it'll probably get my vote. I think, because I just love him. My choice, as Murray's been taken, listeners, I will have to go for the other Wallace, Jed, purely because, again, he's made a journey, chaps, as well. When you think the Jed that we signed, was it from Wolves he came, or was it Pompey? I can't remember which one. Wolves. He came to us from Wolves. A good few years ago now. It's about 6 years ago since he first came to Millwall in League One. And I don't know if you'd all agree. He was a good winger. I saw him as a good winger for us in League One. But he's added layers to his game, and the willingness to take on. Sometimes he goes a bit, indulgent. I don't know if that's the right word, but he goes, he'll try things that don't always come off, and you'd always look like you got egg on your face if you do that. But I just think from a Millwall perspective, I imagine he'll probably move on at the end of the season when his contract is out, unless we do achieve Harry level mystic results of wins and then the end of season tournament. We mustn't call it the playoffs, boys, because like Macbeth, we can't use the word.
P word.
The end of season tournament. I just think from our point of view, he just gives us a level that we'd struggle without him. I mean, we do struggle without him, and it's noticeable when he's not playing for us. So I think I like your choice of Wallace, Harry, but I'm going to go for Jed just to make it three different names.
I'd say Bart in dispatches as well, just because no one else has mentioned him. But I think Bart is still worth 12 points a season. You
take Bart for granted a little bit, don't you? I don't know.
I was literally just going to say that. Yeah.
You could, but you take world-class saves because that's what we've seen on a good number of occasions in this run. Because we've ridden our luck a little bit. We've played some decent teams that have created chances, and he's made saves. So that would have been goals under many goalkeepers. And you kind of take that a little bit for granted. It's like all the great goalkeepers we've had at the Den over time. You start to, I don't know, you just get used to them being get used to them being brilliant. I mean, Tony Warner used to get used to him pulling off miracle saves, and
it's just penalty saves, wasn't it? Just like, it's a penalty, it's all right.
Yeah, he'll probably save this, and it's quite something. So I imagine the vote will be organised over the next few weeks, then, Michael, because we haven't got many home games to go now, have we? So
no, the wheels are in motion. The wheels are in motion. We've all got the rota as to who's going to be standing there with the ballot paper.
With your bucket, yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be like a school election for class president, as it normally is. That organised.
I'll be honest. I don't tend to vote in it. I'll be totally honest.
I do it online.
I never seem to. I just sort of, it just exists, and then normally the person who gets voted on would have voted for anyway. So it's all right, but. I think there's only ever been one where I'm like, how the fuck has he won that? I think it was Dave Livermore. It was the year of Dave Livermore.
That's how you get politicians. I don't vote in the election, but I want to moan about the government.
Oh no, this is why all the time. I think that was when I was very young, Nick. So that taught me that I have to vote in every general election. Well, yeah. You don't always get the result that you
otherwise
want.
It don't work.
Yeah, that's it. So
the system's predicated on that.
The question I was quickly going to ask. Mentioning the end of season tournament, right?
Yes.
Was that if we do get to the end of season tournament?
Yes.
Do you give us more? Do you give us a bigger chance of winning the tournament that we might not get to than actually getting into the tournament? Because that's how I feel. I think
you captured it, Harry. You said that.
I think the tournament's a complete lottery. In brutally honest with you, because you get team. You could have a team. Like, say for example, Luton third now, yeah? So, say for example, they're up there now. They're a complete wild card. So, they'll just sort of keep going how they're going. They shouldn't be up there. You could have a team like Huddersfield, like you say, get a little bit of a dip in form, probably should be one of the better sides in the playoffs. Their confidence will be on the floor if they lose 2-3 games in the last few games of the season. And then you could have us who sneak in sixth. We're riding the absolute crest of a wave. How many times do teams who finish fifth or sixth win the playoffs? It's more often than you think.
I think what we've got. The last two games and our last two regular season games are probably very, very Millwall to fuck up. And I mean that in the nicest possible way, because we've got Bournemouth away, who should be up by then, right?
And Peterborough, is it?
And then Peterborough at the Den. And you sit there and go, Peterborough are going to need a win on the last day of the season, and Millwall are going to need a win. And that don't suit us because we won't be the underdogs. Would have been better the other way round, getting a draw at Peterborough and then needing to beat Bournemouth. Because the Den would. It would. And
it would rise for the occasion, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they'd be beat before they left the changing room. I mean, whether or not that's getting off the coach or getting into the ground, I don't know. But they'd be beat, wouldn't they?
I think, you made this point the other day, Harry. I can't remember when it was, whether it was one of the voicemails or when we were talking. But I think if we can pull off the number of wins required to get into the playoff end of season tournament, I should say, if we can do that, then we'll be on such a rush of adrenaline that we've pulled that off.
Yeah.
And we would surge into that home, because we'd probably be sixth, I reckon. which gives you your first playoff game at home. So there's a lot of ifs in there, listeners, isn't there? But
yeah,
if we can get the wins required, probably talking about what, 8 games? You're talking about 4 plus 5 wins, maybe.
I reckon 5. I reckon 4 wins 4 draws, or 5 wins, 3 draws and a defeat. You could probably get away with.
So you picture the adrenaline rush, Harry, of that going into the end of season tournament, and then that first playoff game. I mean, I think the players will be pushed along on the pitch by the sheer force of the den in that situation. So
I also would like it to end up being, it'd be quite nice if it wasn't someone particularly well supported, if that makes sense. So if it was a Luton or Huddersfield over 2 legs, I fancy us more than us versus Forest over 2 legs would be difficult, and so would Blackburn. A one-off occasion at Wembley. We've got a lot of experience in that side at Wembley. Like, let's not get it wrong. It's not I know we take the piss, but it has become a bit of a second home in the last sort of 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
So, it's a free spin and a die. Say the playoff ends up being Millwall versus Blackburn or Millwall versus Nottingham Forest. You know what the Sky coverage will be if it got to that point. It'd be all about ex-English champions Nottingham Forest, or all about ex-English champions Blackburn, and that'd suit us perfectly to go there and ruin that day, because it just would. Whereas us going against Little Luton Town is literally the worst fucking thing that could ever happen.
That would be a low audience playoff final, wouldn't it, for Sky TV? As I said,
reminds me of the Huddersfield and Reading one that went to penalties. It was like no one actually wanted to go up.
The most boring playoffs or something like that.
Yeah, it was.
I can't imagine the quaking Premier League offices, can you, at the moment, as if we do get close to it?
I think they've got 2 teams they definitely don't want in there, and I will say they definitely don't want Kenilworth Road. They do not want Pep Guardiola turning up at either. They don't want Pep Guardiola walking past Zampa Fish, and they definitely don't want him walking through that fucking away end at Luton, do they?
Well, you go past someone's bathroom, don't you? Have a look in there, see them having a pony or something.
You didn't have this in La Liga.
It's a bit different, isn't it? I was looking at I was looking at 2 things on the official website, listeners. One that is just reinforced. I was just listening to the news as I came in to start the recording, and the inflation is now running at 6.2%. I don't know if that's RPI or CPI or whatever measure that is. It's high, let's put it that way. Which just struck me that the season tickets price being frozen is such a massive gesture by a Mill Football Club, a club that's, obviously we've been hit like many others by the COVID, but it just really struck me thinking that that everyone's been subject to inflation at these levels, and that's making a lot of people's lives difficult. But to be able to keep the season ticket prices frozen, and I get that it's a big outlay for if you haven't got the money, you can't take it on. But that's a massive gesture, Harry, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's intelligent as well. I think it's reading the room for one. And also, the more affordable they are, even though it is a lot of money, the more affordable they are, the more people have a chance to buy them.
A
full den is an intimidating and hard place to come. So
no, it's not. It's full of day trippers and holidays.
Shut up. Right, honestly, that day tripper conversation. Right, that day tripper conversation. If you generally have a problem with them turning up, you're quite happy for us to sit in League One. That's all I'm going to say. And if that's what you want, then fair enough.
I want to mention, boys, just in passing, I'm actually going to do a separate podcast with Phil Clark, and Neil Fizzler's going to chair. He's going to be our Jeremy Paxman, talking about the Lions Trust. You'll probably all have seen, hopefully you've all seen, I don't know what you're doing if you're not following us on Twitter, but we've put the Lions Trust website out there, like www.thelionstrust.org. And we're trying to relaunch it at the moment, listeners. Do express an interest in it. There's an email response facility on the website. You'll probably all have seen the Chelsea takeover, or the enforced sale due to the odd invasion of another country by Russia. The sale of Chelsea inflicted on the club by the government now, imposed on the club by the government. And the Chelsea Trust has been speaking out, like their supporters trust. These organisations are interesting in that they do have a they're akin to being a company. They're actually called community benefit society, so they have a legal status. They're registered at Companies House. The Lions Trust has existed since 2002, and it fell into a bit of I don't know if dormancy is a word. Actually, I've made it up. I'm going to make it a word. It became dormant. But I think in the current world that we live in now, and Harry just made the point about John Berylson, we love him to pieces, but you never know what's around the corner. We've had a long period of stability at the Den, and we've kind of got used to it a little bit, but you never know what's around the next corner, as we've seen in the world generally. And to have a supporters trust that's active and alive is an important thing. The Chelsea one has spoken out about. There's an American group, I think, that were coming in. They've got words to say about them and some of their views and opinions.
They were the American group that they were interested in were not particularly free spending would be my
Chicago Cubs ownership, I think.
Yeah, I mean, compared their you're a baseball fan, Nick. What was it? 70 odd years without winning a title.
Yeah, they had a World Series win a couple of years ago. I mean, the finances in baseball are
well, they're going for a crisis. They weren't going to play the season. They're late going back because they're having an argument over contracts and so on and so forth about how much money it will be. A bit like cricket over here. Probably a one for another podcast, but an interesting take on what happens when people stop watching your TV sport.
But what was interesting with the Chelsea Trust was that they were asking the government to make sure that any owner, including a Saudi Arabian group, and like lurched from Putin's Russia to the bastion of human rights that is Saudi Arabia. But they wanted them to impose this idea of a golden share on that the owners would be required to create that as part of the sale process. Whether they'll be successful or not, I don't know.
Was that on a white paper earlier? Sorry, Nick. Was that
it's
on a
part
white
of the
paper?
And in fact, coincidentally, just before we started speaking, I was watching Prime Minister's Question Time, listeners. This is never thought you'd say that on a Millwall podcast. But
did anyone call anyone a cunt?
No, you're not allowed to. It's unparliamentary.
Sorry.
But there was a question where Boris Johnson replied that I think he said that he wants to see an independent football regulator, which was a major plank of this report, the Tracy Crouch report. The independent regulator of football, he actually said in Parliament that he wants to see that come in, just literally about an hour or so ago from when we started recording. And there's many recommendations under that Tracy Crouch report, but one of which is that football fans, via their supporters trust, hold a veto, a golden share it's called, but it's a veto over what happens, say, with, do you remember when Hull City were going to be renamed the Hull
Tigers or something? Yeah.
So they're the supporters trust.
Also, Vincent Tan changing the colours of
Cardiff
from
blue to red. So they could, what they called various major aspects of the club's identity, and that would be badge, name, colours, club colours. And I think to some extent moving out of the area. So Wimbledon, for example, moving to originally, I was talking about Dublin, but anyway, that moving Wimbledon to Milton Keynes and that kind of thing would be vetoed by this golden share idea. So the essence of a supporters trust is that it's formally set up. It's a legal organisation, and it's just to stress, as I will do a show with Phil where we talk about it, but it's not intended to be any kind of rival organisation for the Mill Supporters Club, because what it won't be doing is any day-by-day stuff. And largely speaking, it will be just there. You hope you never need some of these. You don't need a veto. You don't need it to be a vehicle for a fan-owned club. You want life to carry on as it is at the moment, where these matters don't arise. So it's not intended to be some kind of rival. But you do need it, in my opinion. Like you need a lifeboat on the Woolwich ferry. You need a lifeboat in case it sinks.
So is the aim with that? Sorry, is the aim with that, just as a question, as a thicko? So is the aim with the Lions Trust then to be almost there, ready to go if the golden share, say, scheme
Yeah.
and become part of it, that we'd
Yeah.
already be set up just in case of Mr. Berylson's ill health and sell of club, say, for instance, as a scenario. We'd already have it set up. We wouldn't be scrambling to try and get any legitimacy for it, basically. Is that one of the,
I mean,
that's one of the reasons?
the lifeboat is a great analogy because you don't get on. I've just thought to myself that shows the limit of my cruising life when I talk about the Woolwich Ferry rather than getting on some kind of P&O, no, not P&O.
No, don't get on the P&O.
Some Caribbean cruise.
What's this
So
show
whatever you're
become?
getting
P&O
on-
and cruising. What's going
Well,
on?
it's better than. Let's put it this way: we couldn't use Euro ferries as a ferry
If
company.
if you get on a Euro ferry, you want to know that if it sinks, there's a lifeboat. So to answer your question, Harry, you need it in case you need to reform Millwall as a fan-owned club, like you see at a lot of non-leagues clubs now are owned by their fans. You'd only do that in dire circumstances where you've got a Barry situation going on. It's not a recipe for, it's going to be what you do when the world is collapsing around your ears. You can turn it into a fan-owned club. So you'd only do that as an emergency response. So yes, that's always been its prime and only aim, really. But now the government are talking about bringing the terms of this Crouch report, and they would want to give a golden share to a properly set up, legally organised fans organisation, and that's what the Lions Trust is, and that's what we're trying to move it towards being. There's a bit of paperwork we've got to get sorted out. As I say, it's registered with Companies House. It's registered with the Financial Control Authority. So there's bits of paper that's got to be sorted out on that front. It's stood idle for 5 years, basically. But once that's done, then that would be its purpose and its function. It's one of those things, and it's a bit contradictory, listeners, but it's very, very important, and yet it probably won't be doing much. It just needs to be there. Like, trying to think of a good example. I mean, I keep saying the lifeboat, and it's an insurance
Like a fire
policy.
extinguisher.
Like a fire extinguisher. Good example. You want to make sure it's there, active and ready if it needs to be used, and you hope it never is needed to be used. So just wanted to mention that. www.thelionstrust.org. We are getting people to respond by email. You'll become a member, so it's free to join it. There may at some point be a request to pay £1 because a minimum, you have to make a charge to become a member formally of, and most supporters trusts charge £10 a year, and I'm a bit uncomfortable about charging £10 a year for something that's probably not going to do much. But you have to charge something, and the minimum you can charge is £1. And that's what we'll do when we organise a vote for the chairman. It's to be a legal vote, you have to have paid some money. So £1 is the minimum that we can ask. So I think, hopefully, we won't get too many moans and groans about paying £1 at some point in the near future when that comes to pass. There will be more news on that once we've moved a little bit further down the road of getting things sorted out. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, do get in touch with us. I'm going to do a separate show with Phil Clark, who's helping me to organise stuff, and Neil Fissler will be in the chair, and he'll throw us lots of awkward, hard questions that we try our best to answer and not contradict each other, because everyone has a bit. That's one of the strange things with supporters trusts in many ways, is that they can be largely whatever people want them to be locally, but in the Millwall case, it's going to be the fire extinguisher lifeboat analogy. Therefore, bad days, if they ever came, it'd become a fan-owned club if disaster struck, and to hold the golden share veto if a new owner wanted to turn us into the Lewisham Lions and play so in all red or something, you know.
What all oil-rich Middle Eastern state are we going to allow by the club, Nick? I just need to so I can invest my money wisely before we do this.
I hear Vladimir Putin needs a bit of a break.
Well, I think
he's got oil.
Yeah, well, I think the other one is who's got all the electric? Who owns all the electricity? Maybe
he's got a load of stooges out there. There's a bloke from Belarus that he keeps. It looks like something off of the Welsh Rugby Committee. Who's
that bloke you said emailed the other day, Nick? That Kim Jong something.
He needs some good publicity. But anyway, there it is, boys. Lecture over on that front. I just want to move through one or two wide world of sport, Michael. You suggested a couple of stories. We haven't really got much time to cover them all because we want to get in your club shop review before we close. But I love this story, chaps. This is one from Argentina, listeners. I'm just trying to picture the MSC statement after a bunch of live grenades got thrown onto the first division side in Argentina between Rosario Central and Newell's own boys. A grenade was thrown onto the field of play. I'm just trying to construct the MSC statement that could be put out to the media after that, Michael, in my head.
Well, mine would say something along the lines of, "I'm currently out of the office, returning."
I think the best way you could describe that is going, we at the MSC do not condone the use of military-grade firearms.
Well, I can top that story. I mean, that was a grenade chucked into an Argentina Premier League, First Division, whatever you want to call it, between Rosario and Newell's old boys. But in Mexico, I mean, this really would tax the MSC's statement writing abilities. In Mexico, in their Liga MX, the Mexican First Premier League, at least 17 people were killed and 26 people were brutally injured in a football match between Querétaro and Atlas when fighting broke out around the stadium. And then the unconfirmed reports of deaths. No one's admitting. The local governor won't admit deaths happened because criminality, local gangs were mixed up in this. 17 potentially killed and 26 brutally injured. I think that would be a stretch to try and, the Sky Sports statement. What would Don Goodman have to say about that afterwards? It would be, if that happened at the Den, it would be a difficult one, wouldn't
it? The footage that done the rounds on Twitter. There was a couple of coppers just involved, and it was just literally, it was like fucking a fag in the mouth and not my job, mate. Fucking, I'm not getting involved anywhere near this. That is not my job. I'll be speaking to my union on Monday. That's nothing to do with me. I do not need to be subjected to this. That's what it felt like. Dodgy as fuck is probably
shouldn't laugh really, but you have to see the funny side of it. The Mexican league has been suspended. I should think it would be after.
Don't be a tosser.
Don't be a tosser. Don't toss that grenade.
That would be good. You could have that, but then maybe I reckon there'd be some added security added to the director's box and maybe the officials' room at the Millwall as a direct consequence of live ammunition being thrown on the pitch.
We have been there before. But, I mean, as ever, Millwall break new ground. I mean, when it comes to grenades and football, we have been.
I was going to say, I'm sure that Millwall do that in the 70s or something.
Right?
Yeah.
It was at Brentford, wasn't it?
Brentford.
They took a disliking to the Brentford goalkeeper. It was a bloke called Chick Brodie. It was a rather loud-mouthed goalkeeper. He used to wear a flat cap. Chick Brodie. It was spelt CHIC, like chic. And I think they didn't like him. I think he had a few saucy words with Millwall with the Coldblow Lane end. And in the return fixture, they decided to throw a hand grenade at him. But, it wasn't live. I mean, it wasn't live. It was just a dud. Anyway,
I mean, was that mud running down the back of his shorts? Or
apparently, the story at the time said that there was a moment where everyone looked at this hand grenade that had been thrown on the pitch, and then one of the old stewards came out with a bucket of sand and put that over it.
We have got that guy still, though. There's a guy who lives in the Dockers Lower. The Dockers Lower faithful know exactly what I mean. He's got a glove. It's like a special flare glove, and he's the man that runs out.
That's right. He goes out and picks up the flares, doesn't he?
Yeah. Does he get extra for that, Michael? You'll know this. Does he get extra money for wearing the glove, like the Michael Jackson glove?
Oh, can you imagine? Yeah, Jesus. I'm not getting involved in gloves and flares.
Shall we do your club shop update, Michael? You dug out some. Actually, I quite liked one bit on there. Actually, you've sent through. There was
75% off in the club shop, ladies and gentlemen. The full Macron products. That's the serious part of the club shop update done. Now we move on to the chaos.
I actually quite liked one of these things. But Michael, you want to kick us off with your Millwall Mum Marble Magnet? There's too many ends.
So I'm going to start. So it's Mother's Day, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, from time to time I chuck these out. So it's Mother's Day, and why would you want to go and take your mum for a lovely spa day, out for a lovely meal, or get the most important woman in your life when you can take her down the Millwall club shop? If you want a fantastic present, which is also a ridiculously hard tongue twister, then the Millwall Mum Marble Magnet is for you. For the fantastic price of just a £5, you can be the one who lights up. It's a £5, Jesus, for this piece of shit. For the
Available down the blue market soon.
I haven't finished yet. Excuse me.
Go
For
on,
the fantastic price of just £5, you can be the one who lights up your mother's face as she sees a lovely piece of laminated rock with a black magnetic back that she can use to put on her fridge to keep to-do list on the fridge. Disclaimer. Although the club is an organisation of few words, having a piece of marble with just mum on it and saying it's the Mother's Day gift is stretching it a bit. Also, an item on your mother's to-do list, which is being held up by said magnet, could be get rid of this piece of shit I got for Mother's Day. So, Nick, as usual, can you describe the magnet?
Let's have a look at the magnet. Hang on, I'll cut this so it sounds instant. So the magnet looks a bit like the kind of thing you might put on our wall, you know, the tribute to the fallen and those that we've lost. It's basically like a marble piece of marble with a Millwall badge on it, Mill Football Club 1885, and the word mum written right next to it. I mean, it's minimalist.
How
I
many
just want to
pints
know
can that buy you in the kiosk? One.
I just want to know what the design fee is for that and who designed
it's minimal. It. It's minimal. They've got that. It's
is
gone
there
for,
any designer? Or
less
was there any
is more.
designer? Did
Less,
they just go
less
to
is more.
less,
They've gone
less
for
is
it.
more. That's Nick Hart's view on London Fashion Week this week, ladies and gentlemen. Less is more.
Nick, I'll let you do the next one, Nick.
All right. Well, I don't know if any of you boys are dog owners. I've never been one for pets personally, but if I did own a Millwall dog, I'd want it. I would want it trained to attack on the word Chelsea. Was one of the legendary figures of the past. He had his dog trained to attack on the word Chelsea. But if I did have a Millwall dog, I wouldn't train it to attack on the word Chelsea. I would have it wearing a bandana bought from the club shop. And a little script. Have you ever looked at your photo and thought, what a dog? I'm going to let all you listeners fill in your own punchlines to that. What a dog.
This is full of punchlines, this one. Keep going.
Fill in your own punchline. And have you looked at the modelling item? Have you wondered what you can do for that hairy partner in your life and what to get the bitch who you share a house with? Oh dear. Well, look no further than SE16 because for the fantastic bargain price of just £10.
How much?
£10. Your dog could be the proud owner of a Mill Dog bandana. Well, it's like a rave type look, isn't it? A real Mill Dog bandana. Gone are the days when Stone Island collars and chain leashes showed how real war you were, and the utter steal of only £6.25 delivery charge. £6.25. On top of the item, your cockadoodle can be the envy of all of its pedigree chums. That's good. I like that line. That's a good line.
Thank you.
Pedigree chums in its navy bandana with a clip art paw print. Disclaimer: we at Achtung do not condone bad language. No, we don't. So the use of the term bitch is to just define the gender of your dog, not anyone else you may live with. Also, we do not condone bad language if you take the a doodle off the breed of dog. What is this? What have you written here, Mike? You may feel like one when you walk your pooch with this monstrosity tied around its neck. Finally, yes, it really is £6.25 delivery for anything over £9.99. It does seem strong. I mean, how they run that shop.
I'll be totally honest. If your dog does rip that up, that is going to be one, the best thing it's ever done for you, and two, it's just cost you best part of the score.
Do you know what it looks like? It looks like one of those dribble things you give babies. Not a bib, but you know,
It's
you
like
give
a
them like
bib,
their little.
yeah.
It's awful. Honestly, who in their right mind was thinking, "I'll give this for a dog," and like
What
someone will
I
buy it.
want to know is what do they think hipsters think when they see Millwall? Because the first thing that comes to my mind isn't they think, oh, what a lovely club. I'm going to buy a bandana that represents my feelings, that in my hipster London abode, my flat down on the South Bank, where I'm going to pop out for coffee with my dog, right? That I'm going to show off that I'm very inclusive in this inclusive London capital by wearing my Millwall bandana on my dog. I can't see that being the first. I mean, this is.
You say it was a long shot item, wouldn't you?
This is the marketing department of that club shop, ladies and gentlemen. Someone bought that. Someone literally went, "That's a good idea," and ticked that. These people walk amongst us. They have the vote, Nick.
Well, I think that's the real story, Harry. Who buys it? And then we need to know that story.
Shall we move on?
Not even buys it from the club shop. Who actually buys it for the club shop is the interesting point.
So bandana goes around the dog's neck, listeners, in case you're wondering what it is. But I actually quite like the last item. I don't like the price. I will be up
Price
front,
is a
boys.
fucking
Would
joke.
you like me to do this last one, Nick?
Go on then, you go for it, Michael. Go on.
1994. What a year. Nelson Mandela became president of South Africa. Boys to Men topped the charts. The Channel Tunnel officially opened. Block 1 of the South London Stadium was not covered in bird shit. And England hadn't qualified for the World Cup. Also around that time, Millwall went on a fantastic run and didn't gain promotion in either the 93-94 or 94-95 seasons. You may be asking, dear listeners, why are we taking you back to the infancy of Britpop and pre-New Labour? Well, you'll find the answer when you go to the Millwall Club shop, of course. For the eye-wateringly cheap price of 30 quid.
30
How
quid.
much?
Plus your £6.25, chaps.
Plus your £6.25.
£40 for a towel.
You can reminisce of the days when over 2 consecutive seasons our top scorer barely got into double figures and was a midfielder with a Millwall retro 1994 home kit beach towel. That's right. Take yourself back in time whilst laying on the beach in Margate on this beautiful Captain Morgan printed towel and have your friends look on in envy as they lay on possibly better quality fabric and design for only a third of the price. Don't delay. Get down to the club shop today. And disclaimer, when you have more successful years to choose from, why would you choose a year where not a lot happened except a half-decent cup run? Also, is this actually a beach towel or one of the 4XL replica kits that we used to have in the stock?
Can I point out, there is a very interesting thing about Millwall choosing retro stuff, and this isn't a knock, because I think it's a nice idea. It's a lovely idea, right? But when we do it badly. This is the problem. It's like all the best laid plans of mice and men, as John Steinbeck once wrote. It is literally like that, because there is some good moments in Millwall history, but don't charge 40 quid for it.
It's like the £40 part, Harry, because I mean, actual item, just to describe it for listeners, it's a royal blue beach towel. It's got Captain Morgan in correct font, or it looks close enough for my taste, and it's got a roaring lion above that. And it looks like they've got the collar. There's like a white featured collar.
You just have the white bit, didn't you, with the blue button.
The shirt. So they've got it all. They've got all the bits right, and I quite like it. I mean, I need to see the towel. I don't know how thick a towel is. So
I need to see the towel.
I need to see it before.
I need to test how absorbent it is before I pass comment. But
I'm not sure it's £30 worth of towel, listeners. And it's certainly not £36.25 worth, because if you order it online. I mean, the pricing is the issue for me. I mean, I don't think that's a bad looking towel, Harry, but it's just the price that's wrong there, mate. What do you say?
I agree. I think the towel's decent. Like it's all right looking. It's a bit like, considering the fact that these retro kits. I mean, the Captain Morgan is the kit that most kids of my age want, because with the two. I can't remember ever having the 2 kits that I remember my dad having when I was growing up were the South London Press and the Captain Morgan one, and Sod's Law. They're both too expensive ones to get. Also, I've got a picture somewhere of me in a Fairview one. But like, they're the expensive shirts. You go on like classic football shirts or wherever. There's a market for them, and you're pushing 150 nicker to try and get one, and they're all in extra large because no one kept football shirts because there wasn't really like a retro culture of keeping them. So. You know, all the kits now, they all hold their value. So, like, you can't buy now. You wouldn't be able to go and buy a Millwall shirt from this season, which you might fancy if you think we might get promoted, and keeping it in brand new in bag, because it we were fucking an arm and a leg, because no one did it in 1988, did they? When we got.
But there's a website that does. I think they do mugs where they've got like the blue of the Captain Morgan. I don't know if they're using the roaring line. They might not have the copyright for that, but a club would have it. So there's a lot you can do with that idea, and I quite like the Captain Morgan royal blue. There's loads you could do. You could do like a blue striped diagonal 88, 89 version. There's loads you can do. A Giorgio white towel. Yeah, there's loads you can do.
I still think yellow and black. That yellow and black kit is one of our best away kits ever. It's iconic. It's very simple and it's very nice, but we don't touch it. Like,
we don't seem to do that. We stick around with that Mother's Day plaque that looks like something you put on a cemetery or something. I mean, but there's a lot that the club shop should do T-shirts like that. You don't have to go to a full scale football shirt. You can make a T-shirt out of it.
Yeah, like little Ralph Lauren size little lion in gold on the top.
People want to wear a T-shirt, Harry, go to the gym in. It's something you're going to work, but you just want it. You want the right look, you know. And there's loads that the club could do, but I don't know. How many times we've had the same conversation like this?
Maybe it's tied to the Macron deal. Maybe it's tied to like whoever produces our kit. You're not allowed to do it. I don't know. I could, I'd like to think there's some kind of legal wrangling around rights to kits, but presumably if the kit manufacturer that made the kit, I think it's lack of commercial nous. I don't know about, because I can't imagine there's many legal impediments to the Millwall Football Club using its own badge and getting a font that looks near it that isn't maybe Captain Morgan's, But there's a lot. Captain Morgan should just come back and sponsor us again. Surely, clearly, after I do like Husky. I mean, Husky is still sponsoring the IndyCar team. I know they're not sponsoring McLaren anymore, but they've still got their own IndyCar team. So they've still got plenty of moolah. They might have to pay for Dan Ballard next year.
Achtung, Millwall.
So huge thank you to Michael Avery and to Harry Wrong for taking time out of their day, joining the show today. Thank you, boys.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Thanks for having us back.
And hope everybody has a good international break. It's always boring international breaks, but we do need a bit of a rest from the Millwall squad. And we'll all be looking forward to Kenilworth Road on April the 2nd, I believe it is. So until then, dear listeners, get ready for the final 8, the hateful 8 fixtures of the season. So until then,
go on, hurry up.
It's just a Millwall fan, Danny Mizzen, who plays in my Southbank team, done a lot of stuff for the Isle of Caton campaign with Tony Mundy. He's been injured, like quite bad injury, done his Achilles, and I just want to wish Danny the best in his recovery, because it is pretty horrific injury, if I'm being totally honest. And he's a nice man, does a lot for charity, and just want to wish him all the best.
No, second that. Big shout out to Dan. Hope you
get well soon, mate.
So until the next edition, listeners, I'm going to say arrivederci Millwall. Thank you for listening and bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Achtung Millwall. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a cheeky little review. Arrivederci Millwall. Till next time.
Who do you want to watch?